There are lots of filters that do lots of different effects. Um, some will be more appropriate than others. All right, so I'll just go over a few quick ones here because again, there's too many to show you what they all do. You're just going to have to set some time to experiment and dig in a little bit. Okay, so you have your filter menu here. Um, you've got some listed down here by category, whether you want to do a blur or whether you want to distort something or add noise to an image. Noise is kind of like just adding a kind of a grain to a picture. Um, Pixelate, etc., etc. Then you have your filter gallery, and if you remember, we used filter gallery a little bit back when we did the stippling project and we were gridding stuff, and I had you guys put a filter on the photograph you were stippling to kind of help you see the value, see the contrast a little bit easier. All right, so I click on filter gallery, and sometimes the effect that the filter has is going to be determined by which foreground and background colors you have selected. Right now I have red and white selected, so that's why it looks this way. And right now I have halftone pattern still selected from last period. So you can kind of see what that does here. All right, and you can do dots or circles or lines. I was showing last period how, because my box is dealing with kind of comic book style art and it's very flat, that I was using halftone patterns to create some texture, background texture on my box to create some interest so it's not just everything's just not flat. And I was referring back to, the way comic books used to be printed with halftone dots and how a lot of pop artists in the 60s like Roy Lichtenstein and Andy Warhol would take some of those really cheap printmaking techniques because comics were printed on newsprint. They were basically considered garbage, even though now those are worth a lot of money. So you couldn't really get great printing effects, so they had to use things like halftone dots. But they took those things that weren't really meant to be anything fancy, and they turned them into something intentional. Um, but there's all kinds of different things you could do. So right now I am under Sketch, and Sketch has, like bas relief, where you can, change the amount of detail to make something look embossed. You can adjust the smoothness of it. Okay, chalk and charcoal. And each filter has its own parameters that you can adjust. So you can adjust the pressure, so you can adjust how extreme the effect is that you're going for. And these aren't perfect. Again, a lot of the effect is dictated not only by the colors you have selected as foreground and background, but also how much detail is in the image itself that you're trying to do. So, this would be the kind of thing that, I don't know, maybe you would have in the background on one of your background layers or something. Some of these like Chrome, I don't see why. I mean, it looks cool, but there's no reason to have that on your box anywhere. Um, so there's things that you can play with, but not all of it's going to be useful. It's just kind of cool little toys that you can play with. This is note paper. Okay. Photocopy was one of the ones we used back when we did stippling. Stamp was another one. So you get the idea. There's also distortion filters that give you, like this looks like glass, like on a shower door, kind of an effect, right? Ocean ripple, maybe if you're doing something with underwater, that might be useful to you. I don't know. Brush strokes, you can put, ink outlines. You can make things look like it's like wet paint, or, so you just got to play around with this stuff. Again, I wouldn't go crazy with filters. All right, there's colored pencil. So, these are here for you to experiment with, but again, I would use them mostly for just adding a little bit of visual interest or texture to the back of your box. When you're done, hit OK, and it will apply the filter to your image, right? And if you don't like it, just undo it. So this is the kind of thing where maybe if I was doing a Spider-Man box, I could paste this into the background of my box and then like push the opacity back and then put other stuff on top of it, that sort of a thing. If you don't like it, just undo it. Okay. So here's an example of what I was doing with the halftone patterns, trying to create some texture there. And then I would go back and, put other elements on top of this. Text and some images and activities and things like that. You can do a lot with just a few simple tools. Just with knowing how to paste into and how to play with the opacity levels on a layer, and using that layer style technique I showed you yesterday, where you can add outlines and glows, back glows to objects, you can get something that looks pretty professional, and it doesn't take a whole lot of time. It's all basically your concept. Okay, so now that you sort of see what's capable, what you can do with Photoshop, you're really only limited by your own ideas. After filter, I mean, and there's other things like blur, like you can do a motion blur on something. All right, there's Red Tornado. I'll take the distance down so you can see this is before the motion blur. So if I'm doing like a character running or something like that, I could maybe play around with, I don't know. And then you can change the direction of it, right? So that's motion blur. There's different types of blurs, different types of distortions, like sphere eyes is kind of weird. I need to, there he is. So you can change the amount of distortion. You can go from normal to, vertical only. Zoom out a little bit so you can see it. That really just stretches it. So you get the idea. You're just going to have to play around with it. Okay. 3D, you don't have to worry about the 3D menu. Um, I don't really know what vanishing point does. Oh, this is for the perspective tool. Okay, this is kind of a neat thing. Click the four corners of a perspective. Okay, so this is our perspective. Click drag to reposition the plane. Oh, so you can like make your own perspective grids. That's pretty cool. See, I'm learning new stuff too. Oh, that's pretty cool. All right, well, anyway, I'll play with this later. Okay, so 3D, don't worry about anything in here. View, we kind of went through that already. This is where you zoom in, zoom out. And this is where you can go to access your guides and rulers and all that stuff. Window just shows you all the different windows you can have open, but again, all you really need are swatches and layers. In my opinion, that's all you need for this particular assignment. And help is just, if you want to access online tutorials, Adobe's the company that makes Photoshop. They have all kinds of online tutorials to help you, but they get really technical. Again, for this assignment, I mean, Photoshop can do way more than I am showing you. This is literally I'm just showing you the things that are relevant to this assignment. So, take this with just know that Photoshop can do a lot more than what I'm telling you. I'm purposely not overloading you with too much information. Scale is under edit. So edit, transform, scale, rotate, skew, etc. Oh, wow. That was an adorable yet bizarre sneeze. Okay. So does anyone have any questions? Or I was going to talk to you about other activities you can put on your box. Okay. Um, and what I did first period was I went online and I made a word search. I went to a website called The Teacher's Corner, and it has a word search maker on it. And and there's lots of word search generators online, but this one in particular is nice because it allows you to create a PDF file of your puzzle when you're done with it, which is really handy because a lot of websites don't, and then it's really hard to copy and paste that into your box. But if you can generate an image file from it, all you got to do is open it up in Photoshop and put it in like anything else. So here's what I did. I went to the website. Um, you you basically list all the words that you want in the puzzle. Um, that are hidden. I'll put a few more on here. Then you determine how many rows you want. 20 is a lot, so I'm going to take it down to 10. You can change the grid style. You can do a car-shaped puzzle, or they give you all these different shapes that you can use if you want. I don't care about that. Okay. This is the free version, so you don't get as many options. If you were, I guess, to register or sign up or something, then you could have more choice in font. but I'm just going to choose Arial for the heck of it. Then you click Generate Word Search. Just close that window. All right, here is my word search with all the words that I listed. It did it for me. So now all I have to do, it says you can add an image, but I would just do that in Photoshop. Do Save As PDF. Do Create Image. It'll bring up a little thing. Hit OK. There's your image. Hit Save. It'll ask you where to save it. I'm just going to save it to my desktop, but save it with all your other assets. Now I can go into Photoshop. File, Open. I'm going to go all the way down to the bottom, find my file, open it. There it is. Okay. Now, I don't need this name part up here. I can just select this part of it. No, you don't do inverse in this case because I'm not selecting the background. I'm going to show you a different trick. Yes. Teachers Corner. I'll post the link for it on the website. But it is worksheets.teacherscorner.net. So just Google Teachers Corner and I bet you'll find it. Okay, I'm going to Control C to copy, Control V to paste. Now I have the white on the background, but I'm going to try a different trick. Now, I know I told you guys, to select the white space, select inverse, but in this particular case, I'm going to say no to that because these letters are so small and there's so many little white spaces in between the letters that it would take you forever to select all these little white spaces and it would just be a pain in the butt. So here's another trick you can do. And this goes for line art too, if you have regular, like let's say you're drawing your own box, you're doing your own art and you scan it in and you want to color it, bring it into your image and on the layer, go up to where it says normal and hit multiply. And watch what happens. See? The white space goes away, it disappears, and the black is still there. Okay? And I just have an image back there that I took the opacity down on. All right. Multiply is right here. See, it'll say normal, but you go to multiply. And the nice thing about this is, let's say I decide to paint, like I'm going to just create a new layer here and get my brush and paint. See that? The line art's not affected. The letters aren't affected. They still show up. So if you're coloring something that you've drawn by hand, it won't affect your line art. Okay? Then put a gradient behind it. Then put that on a separate layer and make sure it's underneath the layer that the word search is on, right? Yeah. Now what I would do, what makes sense to me, is when you actually design your box, when you make your box, I would start with the background. So I would put images, gradients, whatever you want, fills on the box sides first. Then add filters, do whatever else you want to do. Then you start adding elements on top. So that way you're working from background to foreground and you're building it. You think of it like a, like you're stacking it. Okay. So start with the bottom, which is the background, and you're adding other stuff on top of it. That makes sense to me. So make your box kind of in chronological order, I guess. Now there are other websites, okay? There are websites that generate crossword puzzles. You could put a maze on your box, just do a Google search for maze. Sorry, I was drawing a gun and I had the image up. I was drawing somebody shooting a mummy and he had a gun in his hand, so sorry. All right, so images. Look at that. Bam, look at all those mazes. Grab one of these, put it in Photoshop, okay? And then, make it relevant to your thing. Like say, oh, help Scooby-Doo find his way through the haunted house. And you could put the maze inside a picture of a haunted house and then have a little picture of Scooby-Doo on one end and maybe Scooby Snacks on the other end, and just scale them down so they're really small, right? Bing, bang, boom, okay? One thing that I want to stress to all of you, and I have to do this every year, is that it is very easy to fool yourself into thinking that just because you're slapping a few pictures onto a box that you're somehow designing something, right? Like take this image, for example. This Batman image looks pretty cool, right? It's got all the figures already on there. It's already got the logo on there. But I didn't design that. I didn't draw the characters. I didn't arrange it or come up with the composition. So it would be wrong of me to just slap that on the side of a box and consider it finished. Okay? Because I didn't design it. I didn't do all I did was copy and paste it, right? That's not what I want you to do. Okay? And I know it's weird because we're kind of using other people's art, and that's sort of a very gray area that I'm always reluctant to get into because I don't want to teach you guys that it's okay to steal art because it's not. But for this particular assignment, what I'm suggesting that you do is if you are using other people's art, there's still a way for you to take individual pieces and arrange them in a way to where you are actually designing them. Okay, when I say design, I'm saying design as a verb, not a noun. Okay, there is a design as in here, I have this design, and then there's design as in the act of designing. Okay, so when you're making these things, I do not want to see you just slap one image up on the side of a box and then say you're done. Okay, if you do that, your grade will suffer for it. If, however, you are taking lots of separate individual elements and you are arranging them in a thoughtful way, and you're actually thinking about composition, you're thinking about a grid, and you're thinking about things like color and shape, and you are actually engaged in the design process, that is what I want to see from you all. Does that make sense? So don't just pick an image with lots of cool stuff on it and just slap it on your box and say, oh, okay, bam, I'm done. Because that's defeating the whole purpose of what we're doing here. I want you to take individual. Now, for example, like on this again, if I had gotten all these individual pieces and I had thought to have them arranged in this way, and I was thinking about the negative space, and and I was actually designing this, then that would be different, And if I was like making the decision to put the logo really big in the foreground with the little glow around it, like that involves a little more thought and creativity, all right? But I didn't do that, right? This image already came this way. So if you have an image like this, please, you can use it, just, push it in the background, do something else with it. Wow, that was loud. Do something else with it. Like, see, now I pushed it back, and now I'm adding other elements on top. I've got red tornado up here in a little circle. I've got the word find. I'm going to put some instructions up here, some other information. Okay, so now I'm starting to turn it into something else. Now I am using my own design choices to create something new. Is this is what I'm saying making sense? Okay. I didn't desaturate it. I took the opacity. See the opacity right here on the layer? I just took the opacity down. See, this is at 100%. This is at, like 15%. Okay? So please come up with your own designs, your own ideas. All right? But again, there's crossword puzzles. There's, you can do a cutout thing where you can cut out a little paper doll of a character, or, I don't know. Remember I showed you those examples last week of the boxes that were more than just a container, like it could be part of a play set for the toy or something like that, Maybe the box turns into an origami character, or you can take one side of it and turn it into a paper airplane. I don't know. I'm just thinking off the top of my head. If there's time, yes. Some years we run out of time and we don't get to print them out, but that doesn't stop you from doing it yourself if you want to at home. But usually, if we get finished in time, I take them. There's a print shop down the street that I go to a lot that I use for my own stuff, and I just have them print them all out, and then I give you guys X-Acto knives, and you can cut them out and assemble them yourself. But we'll see how the time goes. Okay, so right now we are at the stage where you can finally start, if you haven't already, start thinking about what you actually are going to do. Okay, the potential is limitless. All right, literally the sky's the limit. You can do whatever you want to do. Okay, this is one of the first times in this class where I haven't just been telling you exactly what to do and how to do it. All right, so this is actually a chance for you to have some creative freedom, which I would think you would embrace. So I want you to take the weekend and really think about this. And again, it can be something you make up yourself, or it can be a combination of things. Like, for example, if you have a certain topic or certain theme that means something to you, like, for example, the environment, but you want to use an established character to do that. Like, you really want to do Donald Duck, but you really want to talk about recycling. So do something like that. Have Disney characters, but have them with like an earth-friendly kind of message or something. You know what I mean? Like, you can play around with this, even if you're not creating your own characters, you can still make it meaningful if you want. Or you can just do doesn't have to be meaningful, it can just be fun, you know. Or again, you can create your own theme. Like, maybe you have your own characters that you draw for fun. Um, you can draw those on paper, ink them with like one of your micron pens that hopefully you still have those from when we stippled. We've got a scanner right over there, a big scanner that we can scan all of your pictures in, and then you can just select them all individually with the selection tools, paste them in your box, and color them up, and do your own thing. Okay, so it's really just whatever you want to do, as long as it's not something really vulgar or immature, then go for it. I don't care. It could be some obscure anime that no one has ever heard of, but you love it. It could be, yeah, it could be a video game, a comic book, a TV show. It doesn't have to be kids. Like you could do a, I don't know, Pretty Little Liars uh, Happy Meal box. I don't care. I don't know. I mean, whatever you want to do it. But what you need to do is start, once you make that decision, start compiling information, compiling images, right? Start going on Google, looking for nice high-res images for your theme, and save them all in a folder on your computer and gather them all so that when you come in next week, you've kind of got them already ready to go. Save them to either on your computer or save them on a little USB drive, a little thumb drive, which you should all have anyway to back up your work on. Then you're going to, in your sketchbook, you're going to sketch out thumbnails. Remember when I talked about thumbnail sketches last week and how you should do a bunch of them? Don't just settle on one idea. And then start planning out what each side of your box is going to look like and say, okay, I'm going to have a big, like let's say I'm going to have a big Mario head over here, and then over here I'm going to have the logo for the restaurant, and then I'm going to have, a word search there. And then on this other side, I'm going to do cutout characters or, whatever. Just think about different ideas, but actually sketch out the placement of all those elements. Think about composition. Remember, we talked last week about using a grid and using the rule of thirds and all of those things, okay? So this weekend, you are choosing your theme and you are doing some sketches in your sketchbook or on some paper for ideas so that when you come in here on Monday, you're ready to start actually putting some stuff together. We will work on this next week. And then we're going to move on to the last assignment, which is you are going to design a toy, construct a toy based on, your box. So the toy and the box will kind of be, in conjunction with one another. All right. Any questions? Okay. Again, I've got some of the videos posted. I'll post the rest of them today. Go ahead and stop.